Award-winning technologist and World Economic Forum young global leader, Lady Marieme Jamme, is in South Africa, where she's teaching young girls to code. This is part of a drive to get 1 million girls coding by 2030. It's the first African-led initiative to advance girls' education in the STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics and design subjects through collaboration with governments in the public and private sectors. Lady Marieme Jamme joins me now via our video link. Lady Marieme, I appreciate your time. Could you provide more insight into the challenges faced by South Africa's education system that have obviously contributed to leaving a significant number of children behind?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm in South Africa to teach young women and girls how to code, because in Africa we are very, very late. Not only our education systems are really archaic behind, but I think now with the rise of technology, we can leapfrog and accelerate the life of young women and girls growing up across the continent by teaching them how to code. And I learned how to code 7 coding languages as a young woman growing up in the UK. So I think there's a way for us to accelerate that with the rise of AI.
So let's talk about your background and certainly this inspiration to get young South African women coding.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go to school. I really struggled as a young girl growing up in Senegal and ended up in the UK. So I didn't go to school. Now I am, I really want to make sure that what happened to me as a child doesn't happen to many young women, not having access to education, but also not being able to read and to write for many, many years. And so now learning how to code unlocked that for me. I have learned 7 coding languages in 2 years in the United Kingdom. And so now I'm traveling across Johannesburg in townships to make sure that girls who are struggling, girls, teenagers who don't have parents, girls who are struggling with money, can actually move from poverty to wealth. I met so many young women who told me that they are looking to support their parents, they want to help their parents, their families. But I just told them, coding can really unlock that for you. And in Africa, as I said earlier, we are so late when it comes to technology and innovation. Although we have amazing innovation happening across tech hubs in Africa, Kenya, whatever, South Africa, but when it comes to reskilling our people and giving our people skills the next 8 years ahead of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals celebration in 2030, we are very late as a continent. So that's why I'm taking my time all the way from London to travel across slums, across refugee camps, across places where young girls are growing up today in Africa, like I was growing up without any skills at all, by teaching them basic coding skills, HTML, Java, CSS. They can be able to build websites, applications, and my hope is that they can really move from poverty to wealth, and then they can be participating into the global conversation by 2030.
What I found particularly interesting is that you've come from a place where you didn't go to school, you weren't educated, and then you've gone and just, I suppose you've gone and learned code. I mean, you've become educated, you've become learned, and you've gone a step further and you've learned code. And you're empowering these young girls in South Africa, not just with the ability to read and write, but you've gone a step further. Just how significant is code in this empowerment process? Where does it take them outside of just being learned or being educated?
Absolutely, that's a very important question. So I was not lucky as a young girl, and I grew up in Senegal, had a terrible childhood, and many people know that. But what I find out is that, I need to have a choice. Most of my friends have PhDs, masters, they're highly educated and leading government. But when you think about it today, we have 75 million young Africans who are in education, have been trained, and don't have jobs. And I was a cleaner when I was in the UK, cleaning white people's houses, but I was going to local library every single day and really making sure that I can read, write, understand mathematics, science. I can learn how to code. I wrote my first open letter because I was really concerned about poverty in Africa, and that picked up by the press. And then today I'm a tech pioneer sitting here talking to you. So I think the point I'm trying to make is that, we are so late as a continent, and I'm calling all the government ministers, everyone who's listening right now. We need to make coding compulsory. That means that young girls can sit in their homes, in their mobile phones. They can learn how to code. For example, during COVID-19, I build one of the biggest platforms in the world today with partners all across the world to teach girls how to code. So you can go on I Am the Code platform, have access to coding skills today. We are trying to demystify coding. We are trying to make it accessible because we are late. If we are going to build the next solutions in our continent, we need to include young women and girls and boys as well. But we are just, I'm very concerned. I'm a concerned African. That's why I'm taking my time, my money, my power, my inspiration to just tell young girls, you can learn how to code. It's not really difficult. You can just open a bracket, close it down, put your stories in it, make a website and an app. And we need to give this to every single young girl. Otherwise, like I said, we are really going to have a generation of young women and girls who will not be useful to Africa. If you just think about it right now, in 2030, we're going to have so many young women who are 23 years old and 24 years old. I just look at the data in South Africa. They will not have jobs. They just will not have jobs. So if you don't have them now, they're not going to be able to work for you. They're not going to work for anyone. So we are creating useless Africans who will not be useful to us economically.
Well, Lady Marieme, you raise an interesting issue, and that's an issue around the off-takers. So these young girls are taught coding, right? Who's going to purchase the services, the coding services from them? Are you engaging in relationships that allow for the skill set that they're learning and acquiring to then be purchased by companies, organizations, or people in and around the country and the continent?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, first of all, we as a continent, we need millions of coders. Before we even talk about international organizations or countries across the world, we need coders in our continent. We have, in South Africa, I was walking around and see the energy problem we have in this country. I mean, it's really fascinating. You can sit the whole day without electricity. We have young girls who can actually build the apps. They can really participate into the whole energy crisis in South Africa alone if they know how to code. And so the point I'm trying to make, we need to skill our people. We have young people who are not skilled in the continent, and 18 to 25 years old boys and girls who are not skilled. And through coding, I believe they can be skilled, economically available. I told the Minister of Education of Africa, we can actually increase our GDP, the GDP of African countries, by just teaching our people how to code. And economically makes sense. They can earn more money. They can participate into African economies, increase our GDP. At the same time, they can go and work anywhere in the world. Our girls in Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya alone, they are refugees. But being a refugee is not written on their back. So they can sit down, learn how to code, build applications, make websites, earn money every single month. And then this can, like I said earlier, we can move young Africans from poverty to wealth by teaching them how to code.
Now, you talk about poverty, and that's one of the areas that you're focusing on, and certainly in terms of the young girls that you're speaking to. And I'd like to imagine that relatability is obviously very important, because it's one thing to come from a place of affluence and try and teach coding, but it's completely different if your story is very, very similar to the millions of young black girls in South Africa.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. My story is really not different from them. But if I'm sitting here today as a tech pioneer and as a young global leader, it's because someone gave me a chance. And that's why, like I said, as an African woman, it's my moral duty to really explain to the whole world, the Minister of Education, the Minister of ICTs, the Minister of Financing in Africa, that unless you invest into the young girls today, tomorrow we are going to be regretting this as a continent. So my story is a very sad story. I didn't have to have that sort of childhood, being raped, being trafficked, being suffer as a young woman. But my story doesn't define who I am. Today I'm a coder. I sit with world leaders building most amazing solutions. The rise of AI is very concerning for me. That's why my company is very focused on AI as well. But if we are not going to have these young women today, if we don't collectively as an African continent, we need to really deliberately and collectively, radically say to the whole world, we are going to teach our people how to code, meaning that they will use the I Am the Code platform for free. I made it for free because you can't teach girls how to code without having access to an affordable platform. The coding world is expensive. Education is expensive, but we made it very simple now. You can go and log in, learn the fundamentals of coding, 7 coding languages for free. And by the time, within 12 weeks, you can become a coder. And this is my gift to the African continent. And unless we put this into your press, into your media, tell the whole world, please teach girls how to code. In 2030, we're going to regret that. So that's my calling to everyone listening to you today.
And also to everybody listening to us today, how do they get a hold of you? How do they get involved if they want to support the initiative?
They can just go to iamthecode.org. I am is affirmation. The code, they can go on a website and really have access very quickly. We made it so simple. You don't pay for it. It's free for everyone to go and learn how to code. My ultimate goal is that I want to make sure that our continent is aware of this issue we have today. This crisis of skills we have. Skills equal money. If we get these young girls from slums, from refugee camps, from township of South Africa to learn how to code, we can move them from poverty to wealth. And this is so important. And I need to make sure we Africans have a story to tell. There is no story in the continent. There is nothing for us to collaboratively do together as a continent. It's not happening. Africa owes me today. Africa took my childhood away from me. I'm giving back to my continent because I am concerned. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. But I'm a pioneer. I do things for the continent. Right now, people need to go and learn how to code. Otherwise, they will not have money, and we're going to be being in poverty forever. Technology can really uplift, elevate young women and girls. That's why I'm taking my time going from one school to one school. I visited so many schools this week in South Africa. I'm amazed on how amazing the young women are. Very smart, very articulate, but they don't have skills. I've donated computers to them. They're going to have their coding clubs everywhere in Johannesburg. You can go and visit them. And in 2030, we can sit down, collaborate, and we can go and tell the whole United Nations, everyone who's listening, we have coders now in Africa.
Lady Marieme Jamme, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for speaking to us on Africa Today.